Hello everyone, just a quick word from your friendly editor/husband. For all of you who listen to So I'm Watching This Show and own an Android device, do me a favor. Go to the Google Play Store and download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app that allows you to get all of your favorite podcasts directly on your Android devices. I use the app and love it. I can search for the podcasts I want to listen to, select them as favorites, and have them all just a click away. Make sure you set So I'm Watching the Show as a favorite so you don't miss any new episodes. Again, the app is Podcast Republic, available on your Android device. Thanks!
Nothing like creamy pasta right before we start recording.
I was literally about to be like, I'm sorry if I'm phlegmy on the first part of this episode, but I just had a bunch of cheesy, creamy pasta. They say it's what Bernadette Peters does every time she goes on stage, right before.
Just a shot glass full of heavy cream.
Alfredo. It was really good. We are preparing we're on day 372, preparing for...
I've been fucking prepared for this hurricane for a goddamn
Dorian.
week already.
And it's moving at a glacial stroll.
I know.
We're just trying to get some shit done. And so I was cleaning out the pantry, and I had a jar of expired Alfredo sauce, and I had
Expired? You let me eat it.
It's fine. I shouldn't tell you this. It's so expired. It's Mario Batali Alfredo sauce.
Oh my god.
That's how expired it was.
Jesus.
It was fine. And the meatballs were expired too. And then I had a open container of pasta that had been sitting on the floor of my room for a couple months. And so
glad you let me taste
I
it.
put it all together in a pot with some cheeses that I cut the mold off.
That's not true. I just bought that cheese.
Took some slices of cheese. It was really good. And if you have some, you'll float too.
Shit, what a weird segue.
Hello, everybody. I am Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show. On today's episode, we are going to talk about the It's movie. That doesn't work there.
Calls to sack.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite running bits, but It movie 1 and 2. Have you seen the 90s miniseries?
I have not.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
No.
Well, I remember next to nothing about it, so we will acknowledge its existence.
It is a movie or miniseries that did happen.
Wasn't it on like Showtime or something?
I don't remember.
Back in like the 80s, like earlier than Feels Right, Showtime was like throwing down some gauntlets. Because remember Fairy Tale Theater was in the 80s?
Yeah.
On Showtime, and it was like, they ought to do that again. Could you imagine Fairy Tale Theater now?
Yeah, it'd be great.
Oh my god. I have an idea. Quit, stop, press stop. We gotta make a phone call.
On a BRB.
So, where to start? Chapter 1, which came out in 2017. In general, what is your knowledge or what was your experience with it? Did you have any?
No, I didn't. And to be completely frank, I started reading the book during the last hurricane 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not done. And then I remember when the movie came out because it looked really good, like it looked really shiny, but I was like too scared to go see it. So Will watched it, and then I started seeing stuff about it on the internet that like looked really good and funny. And I was like, okay, I kind of want to watch it. So Will and I watched it, and I ended up really liking it a lot, actually.
Well, I was going to say, in spite of the fact that I deliberately framed this as talking about the 2017 version, that I did see the miniseries. It was one of the movies I rented with Jen. Because, way back in 2003, what the kids would do is they would go to Blockbuster and they would get movies, and then they would go home and then they would watch them. And so we would just do that when we were bored. And there were a handful of like scary movies we got that it's a very me and Jen thing. We have a dynamic as friends where we just couldn't be fucked. We were just like, next, I'm bored. And it was one of them. Because it's like, we made it like 30 minutes into Silence of the Lambs, and basically we just wanted to see him dance around and go, I'd fuck me. And
that's like an hour into the, like well over an hour into the movie.
Yeah, we were disappointed.
It's such a good movie.
Yeah, it was one of them. And it's one, I remember finding it dull. Like finding it, something from the 90s. But there was a moment where they were looking at pictures and one of the pictures moved and it for whatever reason, scared me to my core. To the point of, because I was so not expecting it, it was to the point of, like, frozen in fear. Huh. Like, both of us just kind of went, and just locked, every joint of ours locked. And so I don't really remember much of it after that. Although, is there, like, well, you haven't seen it, so you wouldn't know. I was going to say, isn't there, like, a ball of light at one point?
Probably. Sounds like a Stephen King type of thing.
Well, I remember growing up with it, and I remember it along, you know, with, like, Gremlins and Child's Play and stuff. It was hallowed ground for children of our generation. Mm-hmm. And I remember having it in my mind that it was, like, the scariest thing imaginable. And so when I finally, like, confronted it, I genuinely thought it was about a clown that killed children.
It's not about that, but that's not what it's about.
And so when we sat down to watch this one, I kind of asked, I was like, is there a story? Like, I was like, do any questions get answered? Yeah. And you guys were like, I mean, kind of. I don't really know what you mean. And so as we got into it, I was like a third in. I was like, okay, they're already starting to answer some of my questions.
Yeah.
So I had a slight roller coaster journey with this because I was excited and I was really scared.
Excited and scared.
And then I was mostly having fun. And then, to be fully honest, I got a little bored, although we were kind of, again, hurricane prepping. We were kind of talking through it a little bit. We paused a few times. It was one of those things where it's like, I was very off-put by all the establishing. And you know, clarified to me that it's Stephen King stuff.
Yeah.
Which you're not a big fan of.
Okay. I think he is an extremely gifted author. I think Stephen King, and he's very prolific. It's impressive. I have a huge issue with the way he writes human people. Mm-hmm. In that it feels like Stephen King has never met a good person in his entire life. And I can't get behind something where there's not a single redeemable character in the whole offing.
Well, there was like no relief.
And there's no relief. Like, Under the Dome was the most miserable reading experience of my life. Mm-hmm. It was horrible. And I finished it. I plowed through and finished it, but it was awful. And I will say that, obviously, there are good characters in his books. There's good characters in The Stand. There's good characters in Needful Things. All the losers in it are good characters.
You need someone, like, for the bad people to, like, shove around.
Oh, God. But, like, it's also, it's like, not only has he never met a good person, he's met all the worst people. Like, only all the worst people. Because that's like the like teen gang in this movie are horrible. They're horrible. And all of the adults.
The teen gang especially was so much, it was so over the top that it was at risk of breaking the movie for me. Yeah. And I guess the one thing that really kept it from going there is I do remember being young, like 10, 11, 12, 13, and being afraid of getting older and bullies for reasons like that.
Okay.
You know, I had my fair share of bullying in, like, 9th grade and all that, but it was more emotional. It was more like emotional terrorism.
Yeah, no, they, like, fully, like, slice Ben's stomach open.
He carves an H into him. It's like,
yeah, it's bad. It's real bad.
And so that stuff I was sort of like, it was so much. And one of the things I actually kind of told myself is I told myself that it was intentionally heightened to sell, because it's like when you're that age, things can feel that way. Mm-hmm. And so I just sort of, in order to allow, you know, my mind to not break, I just was like, well, it's intentionally over the top to, like, sell the impact, the oomph of it. And the adults, I was very off-put by that at first. And what I'm getting to with a lot of this is that I ultimately ended up really liking the movie in a way that I didn't think was in the cards when I started.
Cool.
Because it stuck with me.
Yeah.
I thought about it a lot. And I think the themes of it are really good. Mm-hmm. It got under my skin. I mean, it was the kind of thing, and I do think it was very scary because there's been a weird. I remember when it came out, there was discussion as to whether or not it was scary, and I was like, I don't know what reality you have to be living in to say it's not scary, but it does that thing that we talk about a lot on our podcast, where it's like two of the most underutilized tools of horror are fantasy and humor, and this pulls those tools out like left and right.
Yeah, but both of them and a lot. Yeah, it's good.
Like, I was surprised how funny it was. And even the scary stuff, it's not so much that it was scary as it was like phantasmagoria. Like, the movie itself is sort of like going through a haunted house where at any given moment something can pop out from around the corner. And
that's a good way to put it, like going through a haunted house, because it is kind of like that. It's because everything's so heightened and everything, like, you know, you can't trust what your eyes or like your brain is telling you that your eyes are seeing. But you're right. I think haunted houses are really good. And
again, there's a fair amount of laughing in a haunted house. Like, you know, the release and the relief and all that, I was really, this movie is really in my sweet spot, because I'm very frequently on principle arguing in defense of remakes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, a prime example, one of the perfect examples for why we should do remakes.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, having never seen the miniseries, I think this only improves on it. I mean, visually, like, acting-wise, everything.
Because I remember before we watched it, I said something about it looked pretty, and you were kind of like, really? And I was like, it looked colorful. Like,
it's shiny.
It looked vibrant.
Yeah.
And there was weirdly a lot of life in it, in this way, that the cinematography, just everything about it, the design across the board. I mean, that couldn't be a more perfect scary house. Yeah. And even the like depiction of Pennywise, the way that it still felt like Pennywise the clown, but it obviously, like, we're not dealing with like a Disney live action remake where they're just kind of changing the colors of the original ever so slightly. Like, this is a fully, you know, reinvented, fully realized. And I love that they went in like a Swedish clown direction.
Well,
like,
because of Bill Skarsgård?
Well, just because, I mean, there are different types of clowns. Like, that's a whole thing. Like, pantomime and circus and stuff. And that's actually something that I really liked about it, that I found myself kind of chuckling when we got into it, where it was like, I like that Pennywise, whatever, is kind of like a frustrated performance artist himself.
Yeah, a little.
He kind of like scoffs at them a few times and gets frustrated with them. And it just, there were so many things that it did that, like, I call it like the Mike Flanagan effect. And it's where you can see like the eye light or the light in their eyes. They do that so much in this. And not just with Pennywise, even some of the kids they're seeing where they're cloaked in darkness, but you can see this like creepy glow coming from their eyes. And I don't know if that's a practical effect or that's something that's added afterwards, but
probably both. You probably can do it both ways.
I guess I don't really have a lot to say about the story per se. I was on the journey. We talked a little bit about it as we were watching it, that I was a little bit kind of put off by the kids because they were so vulgar.
Yeah.
And as I've said several times, that like CW dramas have warped my perspective of what a teenager is. And so, like, gun to my head, I would have guessed these kids were like 8. And it's like most of them are like 13.
13, yeah.
Yeah. So I have no clue. But I mean, obviously, Sophia Lillis stuck out a lot.
Oh, she's so amazing.
I mean, she's the only girl, so you kind of...
And she's got that red hair.
Yeah, you kind of notice her. What, I mean, I was about to be like, what was the stuff with her dad? Was it literal, or was it more implication? And I guess that's the point. I mean,
I think it's more implication, but... it's so icky.
All of the adults in this movie were disgusting.
Horrible.
And it was, because that's where I was kind of like, back to the bullying thing. I'm like, is this really factually happening, or are we seeing the world through the lens of these children?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's partially what you're supposed to take from it. Like, you're not supposed to be totally sure, but I don't know. I think her dad was certainly inappropriate, and he definitely fucked her up mentally. There's a reason why she's covered in blood all the time when she's scared, when it is around, and it's just, ugh, God. Poor Beverly. I just feel so bad for Beverly.
You said that no less than 30 times watching the movie.
Poor Beverly. It really bums me out.
I actually can't wait to see Jessica Chastain.
Me too.
Take the reins.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. That was one of the things that I liked. I was reading some of the trivia last night. Apparently, when this first movie came out, they asked all the kids who they wanted to play them as adults. And Sophia Lillis and Finn Wolfhard are the only two that got them right. That got the people that they picked.
The casting might have been like, that's not a bad idea.
No, yeah. I think that is what happened. But yeah, I liked it a lot. I can't wait for Bill Hader either. I
didn't get a read on all of the kids so much. I don't know any of their names other than Beverly. And I guess Bill, I liked him the most.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of about him.
Yeah, he's James McAvoy.
Oh, yeah. You did say that. Because I don't think James McAvoy is tall and spindly enough.
Correct, and I agree with you.
But he does have the hair, and it's fine. I do wonder what the second one's going to be about, because isn't it 2 hours and 40 minutes or some nonsense?
Yeah.
What is going to happen? That's an eternity for horror.
Well, they didn't kill Pennywise.
No, I know that. That's too long to be killing them. It's there has to be interpersonal drama and stuff.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I have not reached that part of the book I've been reading for 2 years.
Yeah, I'm so curious and scared. But because I feel like it's got to be good. But
yeah, I think it's gonna be awesome.
Who was the Jewish kid?
Dan.
Okay, I didn't get much of a sense for him, other than oh shit, what was her name? Phoebe's painting from Friends, Gladys.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I could think about.
That's good. I didn't think of that, but that's solid. I dig it.
He was afraid of Gladys from Friends. Yeah. And then, not Finn Wolfhard, the other one.
Jack Dylan Grazer.
Yeah, I was watching the movie the whole time being like, man, that kid is familiar. And then I heard the name a few times and I was like, man, that name is familiar. And only 20 minutes ago was I like, oh, Shazam.
Yeah.
So he was good. The stuff, the stuff with his mom and the placebos and...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his mom's creepy too.
I could have used another girl, and I'm not talking about that twat that worked at the pharmacy, but...
No, she's awful.
Yeah, ugh. But I could have used a Sadie.
Twat is such an underrated slur. I love it.
I could have used a Sadie to, Beverly's 11, you know?
Sure, yeah, I get it.
The fucking rock fight. That... I was hysterical. I literally wrote down, I was like, this is as good as the Twilight scene where they play baseball.
Oh, that's, yeah, okay. All right. I'll allow the comparison. That's funny. I don't have much more to say. I'm sure I'm going to have a lot more to say about the first one after we see the second one, but I'm just really excited. Hopefully this hurricane either shits or gets off the pot so we can actually go to the movies on Friday.
We went from it hitting Saturday night to Sunday to Monday, and now it's just ugh.
It's just sitting there on top of the Bahamas, not doing anything, or not only destroying the Bahamas.
Yeah, hopefully come Thursday we can make it to the movie theater. But
yeah,
I think I'll probably process them as a whole. Because didn't I hear that they had plans to release it as a whole movie?
That I'm not sure about. In the theater?
I don't know. Just in some capacity. I thought they were going to kind of... It's like Kill Bill 1 and 2. Sometimes people watch them as a whole.
Yeah, maybe.
And maybe even re-edit it. I'm not sure. But... Yeah, I think I'm going to process it as a whole, and I have no doubt that I will connect with the adult characters a little bit more. But these kids were good, you know? We've talked a lot about how we don't love kids, and I guess it's that I like good child actors.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love kids in my day-to-day life, but I am always impressed by a good child actor, and everybody in this movie is a good child actor.
Mm-hmm. So... I think that's good for now. So we'll check back in after we watch chapter 2.
Sounds good.
Hello.
Did you see that an underwater observatory has disappeared without a trace?
I did see that. I think I saw that yesterday. Yeah.
Much to their astonishment, the entire structure was gone, save for a shredded transmission cable.
Yeah, I don't care to know what happened.
The tweet just says, "Oh God, oh fuck."
Yeah, I'm not interested. I'm sure it's something terrifying, and I don't I don't want to know it. I don't want to know what's in the ocean.
I would like to take this opportunity to talk to you about our Lord and Savior Cthulhu.
Yeah, right? No, hard pass.
Okay, we are back after seeing It Chapter 2. It's actually the next day. Not that that's important, but it's a little bit important. I was able to think about this one more than I thought about the first one. I mentioned it, but we kind of blew through the first one in a way that I really would like to go back and watch it again. Mm-hmm. Apparently, there's like a 6-hour supercut. And I don't know if it's of only the second version or both of them together.
Oh, okay. Well, they're like 5 and change together.
Yeah. If this 6-hour supercut is both of them, I would be very interested in seeing that.
Same.
I did not anticipate coming out of this liking it as much as I did.
Okay.
The whole thing, the whole experience.
I'm glad you did, because I think they're great.
Because I feel about this specific movie 3 different ways. And so I was trying to decide, because there's what we have, what we were given, there's what it could have been, and then there's it in tandem with the first movie. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little bit looking at it mostly in tandem with the first movie, looking at this as not so much a sequel, but as like a completed arc, like a completed story.
Sort of like Kill Bill 1 and 2?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
So, did you have anything that you wanted to say out of the gate?
Other than just, I thought it was so good. I liked everything about it. I have a couple of complaints that we can get to, and I'm sure that we will as we talk through it, but they're not very big. Mm-hmm.
There's themes within this movie. There's a running joke, and it's probably my favorite part, is that Bill is a writer, and there's this whole thing about how he doesn't know how to finish a book or a story. But everybody loves the story, but the ending sucked. And most people say that. And that's a criticism that gets hurled at Stephen King a lot.
Yeah.
And also from that moment, I was sort of like, oh, we're going to be let down by the end of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't feel very let down by the end of the movie. And I did want to say, I know I've talked before about my feelings for Stephen King's writing, and I've said that reading Under the Dome was one of the worst reading experiences of my life. However, the ending of that book is miraculous. It's very cool and interesting. So, yeah, I haven't gotten to the end of it, and after having seen both parts now, I don't think I'll ever finish the book, but we'll see.
So there's 2 things that I want to touch on, and one of those is that it's been one of my favorite observations that it's like emerged as we've been doing this show, but I've noticed it, and I especially noticed it with sharp objects. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people, myself included, when I started studying the craft of storytelling and all that, I thought I had to come up with this amazing, life-altering ending. We think of Sixth Sense as the rule and not the exception. And I've come to find that more often, and especially as an adult, better material asks questions. Things that make you think and discuss, it tends to be more effective than something that promises you a great answer.
Yeah, I agree.
And so once I had sort of accepted that that's not really the point of it, it kind of freed me to just enjoy the movie. And I think, the first movie, and especially the beginning of the first movie, is, holy shit, there's a clown in the sewer. What's going on?
Right.
And that is terrifying. That's just actual horror, like scary.
Yeah.
And by the end of this movie, we're given an explanation, and it drives this movie, in my opinion, into hard fantasy adventure.
Agreed.
And I think once you're watching a fantasy film, the number of scares and the importance of an amazing conclusion, like an amazing answer, sort of become less important.
Yeah.
So I was able to just sort of appreciate the mythology that was being laid out in front of us, and subsequently the character journeys. And so it's like the part of me, and I feel like you'll co-sign this, but the part of me that really loved this movie is the part of me that enjoyed the finale of Lost.
Okay, yeah.
I enjoyed seeing, these characters through to a completion, and we were given some answers that was cosmic in a way. And speaking about both Lost and It,
yeah.
I did a little bit of research, and apparently there's something called Maturin the Turtle.
Okay.
that, and this is, maybe you're going to want to start reading the book again now, but it's like an entity. It's like a god that exists in the, like, I guess the earth is on its back.
Sure, okay. That's like an old, like, Dark Ages kind of theory.
Uh-huh. And it's in it. Maturin is in it. And
in the book.
Yeah, and Maturin is like Pennywise's nemesis.
Okay.
And so it goes to really create, because I remember saying in the first chunk of our coverage, where I was like, isn't there like a ball of light? I knew that. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, there was. And I find it both interesting and solid, and also a bit of a crutch that it feels like Stephen King either resorts back to Native Americans or aliens. It's like those are the two places.
I mean, it's not great.
But also in North America, we don't have druids, like, in spite of what Teen Wolf would have you believe. So it's sort of like, it kind of only makes sense. And there's a part of me that it's like, though it would have, in my opinion, lost the mainstream audience that is going to see this movie, part of me was like, I do wish we had gone a little bit more into the cosmic magic.
Sure, like we could have gone all the way.
Yeah, just because, like, why the fuck not? I mean, we've been sort of freed. We're in a level of storytelling, in a post-superhero, post-musical, post-fantasy revival, section right now. And I'm in a place where I'm like, just show me weird shit for the sake of it.
Yeah, why not, to be honest?
Those are kind of my broad thoughts about it. Were there specifics you wanted to touch on, or? Well,
okay, I have something I want to say right out of the gate, which is there were two things I did not want to see in this movie, and I for sure saw both of them, and I'm a little mad about it. And it's not to say that they were out of place or that they didn't belong. Both of them are in the book. In fact, the second thing is even longer somehow in the book. I was really, really hoping we weren't going to see the brutalized gay couple and Beverly get beat by her husband. Mm-hmm. I was like, both of those things, they don't feel necessary to, like, the overall thing. I'm not interested. And even going further, Beverly getting beaten by her husband doesn't even play in. Like, it's never brought up. Nobody sees the marks on her and are like, what's going on with your husband? Like, like, who hit you or whatever. Like, nothing like that even happens. It doesn't play into her relationship with Bill or Ben, which it easily could have. And maybe if that's the 6+ hour thing, there's deleted scenes and shit, fine. But I was so revolted reading the scene where she gets beaten by her husband in the book that I had to put it down for 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. It was like, it's like 15 pages long of this horrible sequence of events. And I remember from over 2 years ago when I read the beginning of the book what happens to Adrian Mellon and his boyfriend, and I just, like, it's horrific, and I feel like it didn't need to be there. Also, they said the F word more times than I needed to hear throughout the whole thing. Like, directed towards the gay couple and towards Richie, and I just, like, I can't handle it. It's like angry filth, and it makes me mad. Yeah. So those are my biggest complaints.
A lot of people are having those complaints, and I am in between, honestly, because part of me, speaking now about the gay couple, this is very real. And there's a part of me that sort of, I'm aware of it. I read about it. It's, I don't want to be dramatic and say that I think about it every single day. I don't, but it's like, it is present in my mind more than I would say it is in just straight people, obviously.
No, I totally agree with that.
And so for me, there's something that is sort of like, we were sitting in this theater, and like I said, this was a very mainstream movie. A lot of people are going to go see this movie, and they're going to walk out and be like, it wasn't scary. And I'm like, I couldn't be fucked to listen to the rest of what you're going to say.
Totally. I don't want any more of your opinion after that.
And so there's a part of me that is like, I want them to look at it. It's like, I want you to see this. I want you to look at it because it's real and it's happening, and I've already seen it. I've already imagined it. You know what I mean? So So there's a part of me, I guess it's a little bit like you listening to the true crime podcasts and stuff. It was like, I want someone else. I want everyone else in that theater to look at it and be uncomfortable. And I want them to sit with it. And I don't know if this is quite the movie to do it, or within that, if this is the way. And now this leads me into the stuff with Beverly. You are absolutely right. It went nowhere. There was literally no point for it. And it's not that I think that the movie needed more of this type of horrific, realistic violence, but the movie is about fear, and the movie is about real and fake fear. And it gets to a point where this movie especially verges almost completely into melodrama. And so that part of it, I think, is warranted, is earned. And we talk a lot about when scenes like this happen in movies where we're like, it feels like the creators were going down a checklist. And I think that there's a reality where that could have worked in a good way for something like this. Unfortunately, we have these two scenes in the very beginning, and then a lot of that fades away.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly, like, because I get where you're coming from, especially with the gay couple. I understand that you, like, want these people to sit with that. That makes sense. I want people to sit with that kind of stuff, too. My biggest problem with it actually goes to something that Dan Levy has said about Schitt's Creek, where he's like, if you put the opportunity out there for people to see that point of view, there will be people who agree with it. And he's like, so he just doesn't even give anybody the option in his own universe and his own show to be homophobic in any way. And I just think not only having these kids, these way younger kids than this adult gay couple, being so homophobic and then beating them and killing one of them, essentially, it's just, why would you put that in the universe?
Well, if we were watching another movie, I would completely agree. Like, if that was in Schitt's Creek, I would completely agree.
Okay, that's fair.
I think it came with the territory here, and I still think the moral was clear. And the weird part for me was I thought that Pennywise only preyed upon children.
Oh, no.
Okay. Because I was going to say he, like, ate the one of the Xavier Dolan, whichever one, he ate one of them.
It was Xavier Dolan, yeah. Because
for me, that's as horrific as, seeing that cute little girl getting her head eaten under the bleachers. Like,
yeah. Well, I don't know, though, because it's like the ultra-violence of Pennywise eating things is what I went to this movie, like, that's what you expect from this movie. And even though I've read both of those parts in the books, I was like, you can be better than the source material. Like, I know you have it in you. You can be better than this book that Stephen King wrote in the 80s.
I mean, they didn't feel the need to include the child orgy, so...
True. I mean...
there was a part of me that was holding out hope for it in this movie.
Yeah, I mean...
I was like, come on, when they're in the lake... I was like, we had to look at all those 12-year-olds in tighty whities, but we can't see these guys? There wasn't enough sex appeal in It Chapter 2.
I mean, the guy who played Grown-Up Ben was pretty hot.
Well, I think they all were, but...
Oh, well.
At this point, it's like, I feel like saying things like Bill Hader was really good. I feel like that's redundant, but what did you think about Bill Hader and Richie and his plot?
Bill Hader was excellent. I do want to say that. I also wanted to read a tweet because... his name is Jonathan Hatfull, and I, retweeted it from someone else this morning, and he said, the tidal wave of Bill Hader praise for It Chapter 2 is absolutely deserved, but James Ranson is so bloody good as Eddie. He nails the humor, fear, and heart of the character. It's a wonderful, wonderful performance. And then the person, Brianna Ziegler, that I retweeted it from, said he also captures Jack Dylan Grazer's extremely god-tier child acting performance to an absolute T, and I just did want to call him out, too, because he was so, so, so good as Eddie. So the two of them, Bill Hader and James Ranson, I think they were the best ones. And Jessica Chastain is always good, and I think James McAvoy was miscast.
Well, we've covered that. Jessica Chastain, I mean, you're right, she is always good, although I feel like Beverly felt more like a plot device in this one, where she felt like a character in the first one.
I mean, yes and no. That is the thing about this movie where, I liked it just as much, and I certainly, like you said, like it as a cohesive whole. Like, the two movies together, I like them. That being said, I would say that Chapter 2 is for me like Kill Bill Volume 1, where it's a lot more style and a little less substance.
Well, that's what I meant when I was like, if you look at them as a whole, it's like we don't need to re-fall in love with Beverly just because she's being played by Jessica Chastain. Like,
right.
Sophia Lillis's heavy lifting in the first movie should carry over. And
yeah.
I mean, maybe I would have liked a scene or two more that actually, because they weren't really together a whole lot. I think easily one of the best scenes in the movie is the Chinese restaurant scene.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Because they're all together and...
Well, and it's fun and it's funny.
The funny and stuff. And also it was just kind of... It was kind of cool with the fortune cookies. And that's the thing is, it's like, Scary is not like... a hot sauce competition to see who can like have the hottest sauce. Like for me, Scary should be fun and funny and cool and weird. And there were parts in this movie where I felt like I was watching Beetlejuice, which, I mean, in this land of remakes, let's fast track that with actual talent. There needs to be talent and not like a February release.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
But there were things in this where I was like, this is just cool. Like, this is just weird. And
yeah,
funny,
I totally agree with that.
Because I know there's a longer cut of the movie out there, I'm assuming that some of that work is on the cutting room floor. But
I would imagine, yeah.
People don't like James McAvoy. Did you know that?
Like in general?
Yeah, people don't think he's like there are people who think he's a bad actor.
Oh, no, those people are wrong. Those people are aggressively wrong. And I think he did fine in this movie. I just think he wasn't right for grown-up Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when the rest of the cast was, like, pretty spot on.
Mm-hmm. I was having a hard time with his American accent because I just kept going back to his episode of Saturday Night Live.
Charmin.
The Charmin.
Yeah. Well, how about checking this? Girl bear and boy bear are on a date, and things are getting kind of flirty underneath the table, you know what I'm saying? And girl bear says, meet me in the bathroom in 5 minutes. She walks in there, but the bean burrito that she just housed starts destroying her, butt-wise, right? Now, 5 minutes later, boy bear walks in there, starts rocking her world, but he's got no idea that his lady just deuced it because the booty is clean. Charming.
Every time I leaned over to Will, and then I leaned over to you too, and you pointed at your notes, and you were like, I wrote it down.
Well, because also when he hosts The Bachelor, when he's The Bachelor, and all the girls keep coming in and doing the, sorry to steal you for a second.
Yeah.
And he just kind of has this like, woo thing going on, but... It's
not even that it's so bad, and he was also trying to be like a New England person again, which is fair. They're from Maine, I get it. But like, it was too much a couple of the times. And it's like, it's not that I think you need to hire American actors because the guy who played grown-up Ben is not American either. He's from New Zealand or something. But he had a better handle on it for the most part.
Well, yeah, but...
I don't know, you're James McAvoy, get a dialect coach.
Well, and also I didn't think his stutter, he was falling into that trap where he was just repeating one sound, which, yes, that is what a stutter is. But a lot of times they just get caught. And so there was a little bit too much, and I was like, it's more of like a, you know what I mean?
He did do that some of the times where it was almost more of like a stammer or like like the words were just like catching in the back of his throat. Yeah, but I don't think
he was doing that.
I think sometimes he did it right, but I do think he was doing. Was. It also felt a lot like the Beast or whatever from Glass and. What was the other one called? Split? Yeah. I love James McAvoy, and I think he is extremely talented. This was not his best showing.
The kids are in this, though. And they Benjamin Buttoned them.
Will did warn me ahead of time. I should have warned you ahead of time.
No.
Yeah.
And, okay, I have like 5 things to say about this. For starters, just on a surface level, it was fine. It was fine. We know... because we're looking for it, I think. Or do you really think it was that bad?
I don't think it was really that bad. There were like a couple of shots that were bad, but it was nowhere near the level of Orlando Bloom in the Hobbit movies. It was not like that at all. It was
where he
like
could he glowing.
yeah, there was like a like a darker halo around the edges of his face. It was ridiculous, but no, it wasn't that bad. But there were a couple shots, like one of the shots where like Finn Wolfhard's eyes were definitely pointing in different directions, and I was like, they don't normally do that.
They did a little bit look like Snapchat filters, but
I think that's the worst thing that you could say about it, which is not great, but also my biggest question is why didn't they film these additional scenes like after the first one came out when they got greenlit almost immediately?
Almost immediately, though. So, I mean, they had been done filming for a while. It was planned, but it wasn't like...
That's fair.
It wasn't guaranteed. And this brings me to a thing where it's like, remember back when they were talking about recasting the Harry Potter kids?
Yeah.
There's part of me where I'm like, just let them look slightly older. Like, as long as it's the kids, I don't care. I can grasp the concept, you know?
I think because it's supposed to be like the day after.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that same summer that they kill Pennywise. It's not like in Harry Potter where you're like catching up with them every year. Mm-hmm. So I think that might be the only reason why, is because it's meant to be like the day and week and month like immediately following.
You would only really notice it if they did what I want them to do, which is edit it all together as one.
Sure.
But because we're familiar with at least several of these kids, I have seen them grow up, so it wouldn't have jarred me at all.
Agreed. I agree. I definitely agree. And also, I mean, they don't look enough different. The only one that they didn't do was Sophia Lillis. I guess she's the only one that didn't change. Mm-hmm. And so, in my opinion, it's like it's not like they look like grown men now. They're still only like 15 and 16.
Well, Finn Wolfhard's like his face has changed.
That's true. He's pointier than he used to be.
Yeah. So that's why, I mean, for Sophia Lillis, women don't typically do that. Like,
yeah.
Having read half the book, is them not remembering?
Sorry, not even. I haven't read even half the book.
Well, I was going to say, is them not remembering? Is that from the book?
Yes, it is. I can tell you that for sure because I'm in the middle of where Bill is telling his wife what's going on because he has to like leave in the middle of a movie shoot, just like he does in the movie, because he starts stuttering again. Like he didn't have a stutter like his whole life after he left Derry. And he had sort of forgotten that he used to stutter. And he's like asking her all these questions. And he's like, what do you know about my family? And she's like, I know that you had a brother that died. And he's like, yeah, well, he was murdered. And he starts like telling her the actual story. And it's like, it's funny. I couldn't have told you who Mike Hanlon was until he called me. And like their scars, he like didn't notice the scar until he had like, it had been brought up again in his mind. It's the same. Or similar at least.
I was wondering, I'm surprised, because I figured that was their way of handling the shift from 1985 to 2019. Oh. Because we were like, what excuse do they have for not having social media and stuff? And I figured they wrote that as like a...
Yeah, but I mean, you're not the right one to ask. I was gonna be like, how many people that you were friends with when you were 12 are you friends with on social media right now?
Friends I like fought and defeated an ancient evil with?
Well, I mean,
I would remember who they were, and so, but it works either way. I just assumed that was the movie's lampshade for like.
No, because I think it is what they explain in the movie, where it's like it's like a Derry thing. Like when you leave Derry, you forget. Yeah.
I kept waiting for the empty hotel to be something.
Yeah, after you said it, I was like, there should be something going on in here, but it was just like an inn that...
Yeah, no one worked there. There were no other guests. Like, kind of like when Beverly went to like her old apartment, I kind of was waiting for them to just be in a field somewhere, you know?
Sure, yeah. I have a bone to pick with Beverly, which is, how in God's name, she went the whole time, she never found out that Ben wrote her that beautiful poem?
Yeah, I thought for sure that was done in the first movie.
I thought so too, and we literally just watched it, and it turns out, no, she found out at the end of this movie. And I was like, for crying out loud.
And so she's in love with him, because those are the rules.
Well, I mean, look at him. I'd be in love with him too.
I mean, he's hot, but I was so bummed in the scene when he was hiding in his locker.
Yeah.
And you could just see, I don't know which New Kid on the Block it was, but there was that poster behind him.
Yeah.
And the whole theater was like, ah! And
well, he's also smiling so fucking big in that poster. I wanted
the poster to do something.
Yeah, and then he just turned around and it was Pennywise. Yeah, and it was like, I guess. I agree. I also wanted it to be whichever New Kid on the Block that was.
There was a part of me, and though I did enjoy the weird cosmic answer and conclusion we got in here, there's a part of me that thought that this was going to be, about a clown. Like, I thought we were going to go back into, like, the 1800s, because there's that one photograph of Bill Skarsgård and a little girl where I thought maybe a clown cursed the town or something.
Interesting. Yeah, that's funny.
Because that's kind of what they do in American Horror Story. And so I guess I figured American Horror Story was just ripping this off. But,
oh, gotcha.
But no, and depending on how I'm thinking about it, my opinion changes. Like I said, if I'm thinking about it as a fantasy adventure, then I like this better. But if I'm thinking about it as a conclusion to the opening scene of the first movie, I'm kind of like, what the fuck?
Right,
like,
yeah, I agree. It's like the first one is a lot more, despite the fantasy elements of the first one with just Pennywise in general, the second one is like, or the first one, I guess, is way more grounded in reality and in the way that this one is whole hog on the fantasy.
We started this and we didn't finish it, but how did you like, because I'm assuming it's not in the book, how did you like them making Richie gay?
I did like it. It was interesting, I think, especially because I feel like it might have been a new development for the second one, because there was really not a lot of implication from Finn Wolfhard's performance in the first one that might be the case.
Absolutely.
If you're coming into it at the age of 12 and 13, then that's fine.
But it also, it implies that, like, being gay is just a fact about a person. And
sure, yeah.
Like, he doesn't change into a gay person, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
he just is himself.
And also, it, like, sort of, in my opinion, retroactively earns that, like, scene in the beginning.
With the gay couple?
Yeah, because his, like, fear and his, like, late in life coming out stuff, this is the world that they're in. And also, it is Derry, too, because it's like, I don't know, there's a part of me, and I feel like this sentiment is not going to be shared, but there's a part of me that in certain instances, scenes like that are kind of a badge of honor. And
I can see it. For me, I am at a place in my life where I can't. Yeah. I have a hard time with something so hateful. And that's me. And I'm not arguing that it doesn't make for interesting art. It's just hard for me.
And it was Jake Weary who
what the fuck?
Plays this role a lot, and he plays a gay homophobe on
what the fuck? I was Kingdom. Like, come on, man. But no, other than that, I really liked the way that Finn Wolfhard played it in this one, in the flashbacks, and I really liked the way that Bill Hader played it. Especially given that it seemed he was in love with Eddie. Which I thought was very cute. And how about also, that? Pour one out for Eddie.
True. How about that Paul Bunyan scene?
Holy shit. That was literally terrifying. And I will tell you why, because, so we ran into some old friends at the theater last night. We talked with them for a little bit after, and we were talking about the Paul Bunyan scene. I will tell you exactly why it's terrifying to me, and that is because we, as a family, used to go on vacation to a place called the Wisconsin Dells, and they have, like, Paul Bunyan statues and this, like, restaurant where you go that I don't remember what it's called, but you can get something called a lumberjack breakfast, and they had, like, a huge Paul Bunyan statue outside of it, and so, like, that was sort of viscerally terrifying for me because I've been in the presence of a large Paul Bunyan statue.
It's also ridiculous. Daytime, like,
yeah, and it's middle of the day, and they're like preparing for the Canal Days festival, and it's like there's people everywhere,
but they like all just turn and stare, like they turn and stop, and it's like the thing that like unnerved me the most was the fact that the Paul Bunyan like statue, whatever, had like fiber optic teeth. Yeah, it was like it was so weird. It was so
a
weird.
Lot.
There was a lot of spite. I also loved, I said this last night too, but I loved whatever the little girl from the first movie is who got like cut in half.
Sure.
And we see that in the first movie, the upper half of her body. And I liked that her legs were in this movie.
Yeah.
It was funny. I really enjoyed it. I really did. And it's not as good as the first one. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. Also, I'm still I agree that it's not quite as good as the first one, but I still maintain that together as a cohesive whole, I think that they are like almost unparalleled in like a fantasy horror way. Like having them, especially if there is at one point an edited together thing that's like the whole thing maybe interwoven a little bit differently. For sure. So yeah, generally I just really liked it.
I think I'm good. So
all right. Well, as always, you can follow us on Twitter at So I'm Watching, Instagram at So I'm Watching This Show. We're also on Facebook and Tumblr, So I'm Watching This Show. No music to speak of, right? Nope. I mean, the score is amazing, but no real music. So
I started to be like, dream a little dream of me, but then I remembered that's Dr. Sleep.
Yes, yeah, not yet. We can do that later. So other than that, you can just rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or YouTube or Spotify or CastBox or Podcast Republic or wherever you listen. And that's it for us.
Bye.
Bye.